Mhm. Looks like we are live. What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Happy football day. We have another, um, I guess, let me turn this on. We have another showdown slate going on overseas right now. In the London game, it looks like the Vikings just tied it up. So 7-7. Hopefully it won't be as much of a sweat if you've got early only props for this game, because last week, if you followed my prop of the week, it was Hawkinson over his receiving yards, and he had 0 for 0 going into the fourth, and got it on the last play, and it was pretty sick. But yeah, what is up, guys? As you're coming in, just leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to be going through some NFL content today, mostly on the DraftKings slate. Started off, like always, with the early only, and then we'll go to the afternoon only. Do a lot of main content, and then if we got some time later, do some showdown slash primetime slates, which I actually haven't looked at pricing, so want to experience it for the first time with you guys. So I'd say let me go ahead and share my screen, and we are going to get popping. This time the chat is working. Last week I was doing a new setup because I was scrambling. Laptop kind of jagged out on me, so I had to switch to my work setup, and it was definitely a lot of maneuvering around. So now we are good to go. I feel a little bit more comfortable, but yeah, like I said, we're going to start with the early only slate. 10 games total today because buys, double header. Not a double header, but we got some buys. We got, like I said, the Europe game going on between the Browns and Vikings, and yeah. So, but like I said, early only, States Gamer, pretty self-explanatory if you followed or watched our first look video. How we're approaching quarterback this week, it's very self-explanatory. There's nobody really up top. There's only one quarterback on the early only slate that is above 6,000, more than $6,000, and it's Jalen Hurts going against one of the tougher matchups, but at the same time, because of his tush push upside, he is pretty much matchup proof. But I mean, the talk of the town is going to be, these two guys right here, Justin Fields, Dak Prescott. That is probably the juiciest game on the entire slate of the day. Um, both defenses really bad this year, and I think there's a lot of ways to approach it. But obvious chalk is going to be, some running back situations as well, which we'll get into. But yeah, quarterback, these two guys pretty much lock and load, especially on this slate. I don't really know many others, a lot of them in just kind of okay matchups. I think a sneaky game, the Raiders and the Colts. Whether or not you want to pair Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce is out again. So, and it sounds like, or I saw a tweet by somebody that AD Mitchell, he had, if you followed along last week, he not necessarily dropped the touchdown, but slipped out of his hands going into the end zone last week for his first touchdown of the year. It ended up not happening because it was a touchback, and then tied 20. Go ahead, 50-plus yard rush touchdown by Jonathan Taylor, called back because of AD Mitchell hold. So two crucial errors in a loss, and essentially, cost him the game. So it sounded like there was going to be some limited snaps from him. So a Josh Downs trying to buy low on again. Michael Pittman should get some love today at only 5,100. So pairing him with Daniel Jones is fun. Miami is pretty self-explanatory. The big three, of which or I guess big four, if you're going to include Darren Waller after his 2 touchdown debut for the first time playing since 2023. Catch 2 touchdowns. Obviously, Tyreek Hill out for the year. Broken leg / knee, whatever you want to, whatever the official diagnosis was. But yeah, it was a pretty gruesome injury. But now it's just Devon Achane, Malik Washington, Jalen Waddle. Very easy to know. And then Miami, Carolina should be a decent environment. I know Carolina's fourth against quarterbacks, but they've blown out a team 30-0, and then they've gotten blown out twice. So that's a very kind of skewed opponent rank. Obviously, we do attack running backs against Carolina pretty frequently over the recent years. But 5,500 is pretty reasonable and on top of that, all of the guys are easy to get to. Today, Geno Smith, he's throwing picks, but sometimes he's throwing for 300 yards. So if he's got 300-yard upside today, possibly against Indy with Kenny Moore being out as well, he could possibly get there, multiple 20-plus point games, but then obviously 2-3 interception games kind of brought him down in the weeks 2 and 4. But if we're just going with the trend of the odd weeks working out, 1-3, today is week 5. So maybe that's the way to get different. The problem is just not really having confident leans on double stacks with him, because that's kind of what you got to approach. Brock Bowers has been a dud, has not scored this season, but he's obviously been banged up and not looking like himself. I wish that they would just give him a week off and get back to true form. What is up, Emery? How is it going from afar? I know he was commenting right before the stream came on about how the Browns rookies came to show up. Dylan Gabriel's debut today, and also Harold Fannin catching first career touchdown for Dylan Gabriel. Quinton Judkins sounds like he's doing strong as well. Bailey Gerard, what is up? He had some amazing calls in the Discord, if you guys are following the Discord last week. And he says Fields rushing, don't say anything else. I'm on board. Forgot what the rushing prop is right now, but he is the talk of the day. Reason he is the thumbnail. We're going to love him today. And I think locking and loading Justin Fields today. The problem is I hope it's not like a Kyron Williams thing, which is what my prop of the night was for the showdown slate, where I liked him, wanted to be overweight. That was a great call, but he happened to catch 8 passes, which he never does that. Goes for 66 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and gets just short of the rushing yard, which we all would have taken down had that not called out. So that was a bummer. But yeah, 15.5, that's pretty solid. I would say he had an 81-yard touchdown last 81 yards total and a rushing touchdown last week. Let me pull up his splits. So yeah, just short the first 2 weeks. Obviously this was a small sample size because he did leave the game early. But I think that's pretty solid. Overall, love some Jets today. Obviously, we're going to target Dallas all season long with how bad they've been defensively, especially just banged up secondary wise. Anyway, let's finish up the quarterbacks. My puke stack of the week is going to be Mr. Bryce Young. I know that's gross. He's actually pulling some ownership today, roughly 6% on the main slate. But it's really easy to know where you're going. Tedero McMillan, I feel like today's a strong day to see him break out. And Bryce Young against Miami, hopefully sneaky puke style shootout that no one really cares about the game, but us DFS nerds really do. Hopefully he gets closer to that 26 fantasy point threshold. And if he does for under $5,000, that is absolutely going to take over. He does have somewhat rushing upside. Hasn't really shown in a ton recently. But also very weird game scripts. Like I said, a blowout plus a lightning delay that throws everything off. Blowout here, blowout there. This one was the strong game that they came back and obviously had a ton of opportunities, 57 pass attempts and rush attempts combined. So $4,700, really easy to get to. I don't think Jalen Coker is back today. However, like I said, Tedero at 57, he's just waiting to break loose. He's been fine, just hasn't scored yet, but 8 targets every game. Xavier Legette, I think, is back today, but he could not have had a worse start of the season. 15 targets so far, 8 yards. That is not very efficient, if I say so myself. Good morning, Dusty. Hopefully you killed it yesterday in terms of the college slate. Wasn't paying a ton of attention throughout the day. I was kind of out and about, but I saw Texas went down, and I'm sad about that. I saw A&M kick butt, right? Let me pull up some scores. Because I know Penn State, as a 24.5 point favorite, lost to the winless UCLA Bruins. That was kind of funny. Alabama got revenge on Vanderbilt. And Miami looks like Florida State. I think that was kind of making it closer at they were down as much as 28-3, made it 28-22 in the final. So I don't know if there was a legit chance of them winning, but done with Kyron and the Brokies. Man, I tell you what, there's just a lot of disappointment right now with some college slates, especially the Longhorns. That's been probably one of the biggest disappointing things. Obviously, based on the hype being the preseason number one, Arch looks not very good. But yeah. Anyways, getting back to this slate, like I said, not a ton. If you want to throw a dart on CJ Stroud, he played a ton of lines. Sure, he finally had multiple touchdowns last week for the first time this year. 3 straight games where it's been excellent matchups. I wouldn't say Tampa Bay is an excellent matchup, but he just isn't getting there. But Baltimore once again is one of the worst secondary / banged up teams in football. Houston's actually a favorite now because of the Lamar injury. So 5,200 is very cheap, reasonable, good price tag. Jackson Dart 19.8. That was a good call by Emery last week of playing some of him, a sprinkle of him in his debut against the Chargers. This week, I would like to see him have a more than 111 passing yards if you're going to spend 5,300 for him. But it's a good environment. They're actually a slight dog, and I was kind of surprised by that because I'm actually picking the Giants outright, and that was one of my favorite spreads on the week. But yeah, sneaky, decent amount of quarterbacks, but all of them are value, essentially. In terms of news, I don't think we're waiting on a single thing. I know Brock has a Q tag. He's going to play, maybe limited, though. Tracy's doubtful. Braylon Allen obviously was on IR. Chuba was ruled out yesterday. Lamb, it sounds like he's getting closer, so it's not going to be like a long term. But I would assume that he would be out this week and iffy next week, but for sure be back week 7 if all else fails. Down low, like I said earlier, Alec Pierce ruled out, so opens up a little bit of target share for the Colts, makes their situation a little less murky. I will say Tyler Warren today, the highest tight end receiving yards prop of anybody at 60.5. That's even more than Trey McBride, who on the main slate is over $1,000 more than him. So I think that's pretty solid. What is up, Gail? Let's get ready to make some money today, man. Shout out some of your props of the day if you do have any that you feel really, really strongly about. My favorite prop of the day right now, if I'm just thinking out loud, is Rachaad White's fantasy score. I think it's really, really low based on his projections on Roto, on the optimizer that we follow. It's about 2 to 3 points lower than his total on Prize Picks, which is 13.5. And I think it was 12.5 on Underdog, which I know it's a little harder because it's a half PPR site, but I think it's pretty easy to get there with or without a score for him having all the volume, unless Sean Tucker just makes it a 30 touch effort out of nowhere. I remember last year the 1 game sample size without Rachaad White, before Rachaad White lost his starting running back role, essentially. Bucky Irvin was the chalk, and it worked out. But Sean Tucker, as a backup, less than 0.1% owned, ends up in the Millie Maker lineup with over 30 fantasy points. So it was pretty incredible. So I wouldn't rule out Sean Tucker eating a little bit into White's touches. I mean, White, his rushing yards or rushing attempts is like 13.5. But yeah, like that situation. A lot of running backs today. Want to kind of go over that because it was already loaded before the injuries, and now that there's injuries rolled out, there's chalk. Ownership might be a little spread out, but the thumbnail, the guy that might be the easiest play or click is just Carolina, historically bad last year in terms of giving up fantasy points to running backs. $7,300. He is your wide receiver 1, your running back 1. He might be the highest projected overall play on the slate. He's going to be the highest owned. Doesn't matter. There's ways to get different and unique. But I think just plugging and playing Devon Achane, who could have 10 targets, multi-touchdown upside, 100-yard bonus on either rushing or receiving yards. I think it's as much of a no-brainer as it can be, as long as he is healthy and good to go. But he will carry a lot of ownership today. Nobody's really going to be talking about Saquon Barkley, showing less than 7% owned. But this is the same matchup that Jonathan Taylor went for over 200 yards. Omarion Hampton finally broke out, scored his first touchdown, over 20 fantasy points. And then they're at home. He hasn't broken out yet. He's just been fine. Really bottled up, but this is the matchup for him to break out. So him as a leverage play, I think is pretty fun today. based on his ownership. 7,500 is fine. The problem is that I want to build with 3 running backs in every line, and it's hard to just squeeze all these guys in, Bailey bringing up Sean Tucker 27 seems like a decent rushing prop. I think it is. Yeah, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Against the same matchup again, that if you like Rachaad White, you should like Sean Tucker if you don't believe in Rachaad White. Either way, pretty strong matchup. I think they'll kind of 60-40 it, but Rachaad White getting all of the pass catching role or the majority of the pass catching role, but that doesn't mean Sean Tucker can't get, an even split in terms of carries. So I think that's a good bet for sure. Derrick Henry, he could have 30 rushing attempts today. It's not the best matchup. This isn't what we used to see with this used to be like the just auto click Derrick Henry against the Texans. He had at one point had 4 consecutive 200 plus yard rushing games against the Texans, multi touchdowns in a few of those games as well. I know that Houston's much better defensively than they used to be in terms of when he was a Titan, but now Lamar's out. I don't know if they're just going to put the ball in Cooper Rush's hands. So $7,000 for somebody that could just be a pure volume play of a 25 to 30 touch game. It's not like he's coming off of a ton of workhorse roles. He's only combined for 20 rushing attempts in the previous 2 weeks. Obviously game script did not really go in his favor. This one, since it's basically a pick 'em, should be closer. And if the Ravens have any chance of winning, it's probably because of Mr. 22 right there. GT, after a breakout week, is kind of going to get overlooked. Indy, pretty strong run defense so far this year, but broke out millionaire maker lineup last week. Wanted to get overweight to all those rookie running backs, and it started with Genty, and that worked out pretty well. But today might be a little light on him. Cam Scatterboo, he was fine. 27 touches. He just didn't score. But this week, going against New Orleans, much better matchup than it was against the Chargers last week. Bottom 8 against running back so far, 6,000, really reasonable price tag. I'm sure he will have some really positive leverage. Alvin Kamara, way too cheap. I haven't clicked on his name a ton, but I understand if you want to, just because of the role, the matchup. I think clicking both of them, I think, is a pretty fun game stack that not a lot of people are going to do today. Breece Hall will be kind of chalky with Braylon Allen out, but he's basically wide receiver 2 in terms of targets, and now he's the true running back 1. Hopefully Isaiah Davis doesn't poach some touchdowns from him, but love him today. Woody Marks, best matchup against running backs. He just coming off a 22-touch game. We need to find out whether or not that's sustainable. It was a 2-touchdown effort, and they were, shutting out the Titans, and a lot of that came in the fourth quarter. So I understand clicking his name. 5,400 is really, really cheap. In terms of ownership, let me actually look. Don't really know what we're getting to with Woody today because of all the crazy running backs. Not sure if that's correct, but if it's 2%, I want to be way over the field to 2% because the match is way too good. Props wise, I think everything's kind of juiced, so I don't love props for him. I think we had a friend of the show bring that up in a chat earlier this week, but yeah, tough to get to on props, but matchup is there. If the ownership's not, just lock and load. And then one chalky running back for the main slate is not on this one, but Rico Dowdle, really, really easy to click his name. 4,300 with Chuba Hubbard out. As long as the game stays close, great matchup. I don't think Trevor Etienne is going to poach much of his workload. I think it's just he's a volume guy today. 4,300, pretty easy to click on. I think he'll be less popular than a Rachaad White on the main. But in terms of value, I think he's the highest valued running back on the early on this slate. Yeah, about 3.2x, projected just under 14 fantasy points, which is really strong for 4,300. So right now on the main, he's showing just under 24% owned. And so that probably be ballooned up to about 30% on this slate. So really easy to just click his name. 3 running backs I'm going to be doing a lot today. But kind of rambling, doing a lot of dabbling. But yeah, let me check Emery says currently on early only, we have about 62% fields, and then everybody's about less than 8%. No, we said we were going to go fields, but it looks like a solid spot to get away unless you're playing close to 100. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about. See, I think he's referring to the ownership that is Roto. Roto don't love their ownership on non-main or showdown slates. I think he'll probably be by far the highest owned, roughly about 40 to 45%. So if you play three, I'm probably going to play three early only lines and do two Justin and one of somebody else. It might be a Bryce Young, it might be Dak, it might be probably those two. But it is worth mentioning. Not only is he the highest owned, he is the highest value as well. And in terms of leverage, I think he's showing negative leverage. Yeah. Um, but at the end of the day, like it's really easy for a quarterback that is the only or one of only two quarterbacks on the entire slate today that's projected for over 20 fantasy points, and he is one of the cheaper ones as well. So, um, really, I think he's just good chalk. The problem is that if it's just rushing upside, the always stacking him with Garrett Wilson, that might not work out. So that's the thing that we're gonna have to need to think about. Um, and then the Gale saying, "What would it be foolish to fade Rico in the early on this slate?" I wouldn't say foolish because at all would not say foolish because of all the running backs. I went through about 10 names. So and it's not like on receiver, especially on the early only. The most expensive receiver is $6,800. There are only four receivers over $6,000. So I don't think it's a bad decision at all right now. I think I and of course I'm gonna finalize my builds after we get off the stream. So closing out around 11 o'clock. Um, but I think I only have him in 1 out of 3, which is going to be right at the field, I would assume, or maybe slightly underweight. But I like getting overweight to Saquon. I like HN. I think is the one that would be foolish to fade on this early on this slate. If I have to pick one guy to be not fading, um, and just locking 100% in. But I like Derrick Henry. I like Cam Scatterboo. Kamara, you can convince me. Brees Hall, I like a lot. Woody Marks, like I said, nobody's playing him apparently. So I think there's so many options that you could pick three running backs that aren't his name and still be fine. The only thing is it might force you to cross your fingers on some of these mid-tier receivers, like some Darius Slayton. I said that on the first look main. Now that Malik Neighbors is out, he had, I think, a 28% target share in the 2-game sample size without Malik Neighbors last year. So pretty strong. He's a deep play threat as well. So that's worth mentioning. If you can convince yourself behind any of these guys, maybe a Rashad or either Rashad Bateman or DeAndre has a little bit more upside now that Cooper Rush is quarterback. I don't really convince myself that. Troy Franklin's projecting well. He's still 4,000. Malik Washington is going to have a role. He's had, I think, 7 opportunities or at least 5 opportunities in all 4 games this season. And that was with Tyreek Hill. So now that he's not there, I mean, he's a pretty strong, like, I'm not really getting down below 4,000 on receivers a lot, but he's probably the easiest name to click on in that regard. Josh Downs didn't have a strong game last week, but once again, AD Mitchell apparently is going to have reduced snaps. Still, Alec Pierce is out. So if you don't like Pittman or you're getting away from Pittman, going $1,000 cheaper in a better matchup this week, bottom 3 secondary, or at least against receivers, Josh Downs makes sense. So, yeah, I think it's really easy to get away from Rico in comparison to Devon Achane on this slate. Javonte Williams, I didn't even mention his name, but he's projecting well also. Last week, I mean, he's just truly. I love the fact that he's taken away this role because he deserved to, and I was hoping that they would give him the opportunity. But he had a season high in terms of touches, or actually, that's a lie. He had 23 touches, but his second game of the year with over 20 touches last week. First game true sample without CeeDee Lamb, but he's got 5+ target upside. He's got bonus upside if you think that. The only thing is I don't know if he can get to those 100-yard bonuses that we compared to the others, so he might get a little lost in the shuffle. In terms of, let me look up the running back filter by salary. Yeah, he's projecting 17 points, 5% leverage. That's the second highest on the entire slate today. So yeah, Javonte, definitely a good call, and don't mind being overweight at all to him. But I think you got to get to that 20% threshold if you're going to. I will say that. I need a third monitor. That's what I need. Is a third monitor, and this would be perfect. But Emery, kind of following up on the Gale's question, what does he need to score to not pan out? I mean, as long as he doesn't score under 15, I think you're fine. I mean, 10 to 15, it works out, but it's not like that's going to win you the millie getting there, because I think plenty of running backs have 20-plus point upside today. So if he only gets 12, I think that doesn't hurt you at all. Obviously, under 10 is probably great leverage to not play him. I think he'll probably get somewhere between 12 to 14 conservatively. I mean, that's not even conservative, but that would be my anticipation. So he is showing negative leverage, though. I will say that. I don't know if it's the most. Let's see. Yeah, he is the most negative leverage play on the entire slate today. So, like I said, easy to get away from based on the position value. And yeah, I as long as he doesn't score 20, I think it'll pretty much be fine. But I definitely would sprinkle some in today. I don't know where I was at right before I got on stream, but I think I was roughly around 30%. That's slightly overweight, or maybe at the field, depending on how people value him versus Rachaad White today. I love, if I had to pick one or the other, it's clearly Rachaad White over Rico. I will say that. And then kind of following up, Mason Taylor. He, like I said, because his 2,800 price tag came out as the Monday night game was going on, but had a season high in terms of targets, receptions, yards. He just didn't score, but 11.5 would smash at less than $3,000 for a tight end. If Justin Fields, you're playing him today, it's really easy to get over the field, I would say, because a lot of people, because of the value, are playing the at least on the main, Trey McBride, Tyler Warren, Jake Ferguson. So in terms of Mason Taylor, showing less than 10% owned. So if you're going to play, like for me, playing 20 max, I'm probably going to play 8 to 9. That sounds like a lot, but 8 to 9 Justin Fields lines, because the quarterback, I think, is pretty easy to just kind of know who you want. I don't want to spread out a ton in terms of quarterback, but it's really easy to be like, all right, I'm going to play 3 lines with Taylor plus Wilson, and then the other 4 or 5, I might do mix and match with single stacks or doubles with Breece Hall, or just Breece Hall and Justin Fields. Yeah, easy, very easy to get overweight. I think a lot of people are probably just going to ride with a single stack of Justin Fields, or a naked stack, or not naked stack, but just playing him naked is the way that I kind of see leverage going, because of him being the highest rostered quarterback, receiver wise, even though it's a diluted position today in terms of like high tier plays. Garrett Wilson's still under 20% owned. Breece Hall actually has one. I think he's right now the second highest owned running back today. So I don't think a ton of people are playing them together as like a single, but I think Justin, Breece, and Garrett is completely fine today. The thing is, I'm not as confident in it, because it could be something like last week, which ended up working out because of him salvaging. He was not playing well in terms of fantasy score until he had that big 43-yard touchdown run. And then Garrett Wilson was not panning out until he had that fourth quarter touchdown. And on top of that, he had like 30 receiving yards on the lateral to finish the game. So that really kind of helped get his, working out and panning out to get to 20 fantasy points. But he was less than 10 for about 57 minutes until that final touchdown. So yeah, that's kind of how I view Mason Taylor today. Really easy to get to. I think probably there's 4 tight ends that I might play today, between the 3 dominant ones or punting all the way down. So we can mix and match how we please. Bailey has a start sit question. So AJ Brown, and again, guys, if you are new to the stream, while we're doing DK lines, if you do have any start sit questions, prop bets, want to get some takes or shout out some that you really feel good about, just let us know, and we can try to maybe build a community parlay or just kind of collab on a line, because I don't think there's a ton standing out of just obvious plays, but I am open to interpretation. But yeah, Bailey asking AJ Brown, JSN, Tet, Malik Washington, start 3 of them. I think JSN, Tet are locks. And it's really hard, even though Malik Washington is fine. It's hard to just start him outright over AJ Brown today. I don't think I can really convince myself, even though it is a tougher matchup. Let me see where AJ Brown's at today. Let's see. 11.8. That's pretty disgusting in terms of projection. Malik Washington has about 9. So it's actually closer than the name value would make it seem. I'm assuming it's a PPR format. That shouldn't really matter. Shoot. I hope it's Malik Washington, because I know I am playing Bailey in our friend league, and he picked up the day of Kendrick Bourne, and Kendrick Bourne goes 10 for 142 against me, and it's like, cool. Last week he also picked up the morning of a Kenneth Gainwell with Jalen Warren getting rolled out, and he goes for 30 for him at his flex. So he's the king of picking up waiver wires. And so if I can respond in any way and Malik Washington goes off, I'll feel happy. But yeah, I think I would lean AJ Brown, but be very, very nervous about it just because of the matchup. But yeah, so let's kind of put a button on this and throw a couple lines together. If you do have a specific quarterback build or forcing any players in, any looks, just let me know, and I'll build what I can. I know we've had some success with guys shouting out like, show me this look. Like a couple weeks ago, Dusty wanted us to build a specific stack that we didn't even talk about, and that ended up being the highest point total line that we built the entire stream. So those kind of things are fun, and it's fun to interact. So if you do have any questions or guys that you want to plug in that I haven't talked about or aren't in the line, just let me know, and we'll rock that way. So I'm gonna start with Justin Fields though, and I'm gonna go with that guy, and it's pretty easy to say. And then defense, I'm gonna play a F ton of Houston today against Cooper Rush. I'm gonna be playing a ton of the Saints today. The Saints are actually the highest owned, but 2,200 didn't make any sense based on them being a home favorite. I don't think they'll win, but if they're a home favorite, why are they the cheapest defense on the slate against a rookie quarterback? Has had 3+ sack games. They just haven't caused a lot of turnovers, and on top of that, they've allowed at least 26 points in 3 straight games. So that doesn't help the fantasy total when you get to that amount of points allowed. So today, if it's just going to be a 20-17 kind of game, it's really easy to get there. It makes you afford whatever you want. I don't really want to play the Ravens defense, even if it is Houston's offense. I think the Colts is fine. They're a little banged up as well, but they've got a couple double-digit games so far. If you think Philly or Denver is going to be a lower scoring game, defense is kind of gross, like anywhere up top today. There's no clear play, so I'd rather just get down here. I'm just going to go Houston, and if I need an extra $200, punt down to New Orleans. That's probably how I'm going to focus today for the most part on defense. Tight end wise, I click flex. Tight end wise, at least on this slate with Trey McBride being out, it's either Fergie, Warren, or Taylor is really how I'm going to approach this. I'll start by doing Jake Fergie as the bring back in this line specifically. And then let's see what we can do from here. So I'm obviously going to put in Garrett Wilson on my first look with Justin Fields. And let's see here. I'm going to throw Saquon. I just like the fact that it's a really good matchup. He's got low ownership. I think a lot of people are going to flock to Derrick Henry. Obviously, Devon Achane and Jonathan Taylor today. Jonathan Taylor's projecting really well against the defense that is top 5 against running backs. They've shut down people in terms of yard per game averages. And this year, he has had 2 duds against situations where Miami, they were shitting on them so much. And on top of that, Daniel Jones having 2 rushing touchdowns. That's what killed his day. But the Rams, one of the better defenses, and he just wasn't able to score. Still had 96 yards. But him being a season high $8,000, you probably need 25 from him. And I mean, I don't think that I would view him as clearly having better upside than Saquon Barkley today. And he's 500 cheaper, way less owned. So I know he's not going to project as well, but I like him a lot. In terms of the correlation with HN today, I'm going to be playing a lot of Tedero McMillan as a breakout candidate. And then with that said, if I'm going to be playing Tet, I'm not going to be playing Rico Dowdle on those lines. I might flirt with a Bryce Young double with those two, but I'm not going to play them together, even if it's an early only. But still, even with fading Rico, you still got 5,300 per player. And then the last two in, let's say we finish up and there's a Michael Pittman down here. That's 55. It's kind of a weird price. You can put a Woody Marks to correlate with the defense a little bit. If you wanted to, let's go all the way down to a Darius Slayton. That's enough for Javonte Williams that the Gale brought up. It is two Dallas players. So if I was going to do that, I might switch to Tyler Warren down here. Or you could go Cam Scatterboo. I probably going to, the majority of my lines today are going to be 3 running backs. So I know in terms of the flex, that's what I'm showing. But this is pretty much how I'm going to approach this slate today is mostly 3 running back slates. I don't think any of the Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton, AJ Brown, I guess Jacoby Myers is fine. He might be a little overlooked, but he's had a couple duds. He was chalky last weekend, was a dud. Back-to-back games where he's under 10 fantasy points. So, he's fine. Don't love him, though, compared to any of these guys at running back. So, let's just say that. Let's see. Yeah. Tyler Warren, Javonte Williams, finish up like that. And like I said, if you changed your mind, you wanted to go, instead of Tyler Warren, going Michael Pittman as your Colt, and then keeping that, not that, Jake Ferguson, and then, like I said, last guy in, Woody Marks, low owned. So you've got 3 great running back matchups. 2 of them are the lower owned of the high amount of options, and then receiver, you're basically just kind of living in the middle, especially on the early on slate. I will say I'm going to get to some Nico Collins today. He has the highest receiving yardage prop on the day, and I think that's pretty interesting. Especially, it's a good matchup once again. Ravens secondary banged up, one of the better matchups. I like him a lot today. Let's do another look where we put in some Breece Hall. So, like I said, doing a double, I think it's fine. I don't mind it at all. Breece Hall is going to be popular today. He's going to be popular. So, if you're going to play these two together, I think you got to leave some salary on the table or find weird spots to get different. So, like, hypothetically, if you wanted to do, let's say this, bang, 5,700 left. That's once again Woody Marks territory. We can maybe try to get $100 more. Tyler Warren, you can go even cheaper on. Oh, I know what to do. Go Saints. You can correlate with Alvin Kamara, but I obviously don't mind when it's that cheap of a defense going against the grain. Maybe less people do that. It is 0 remainder, though, so take with that what you will. Don't mind that, though. If you wanted to try to get another expensive receiver and you wanted a Rico Dowdle this time, let me go find him. And then $7,400. What is that? What can we make with that? Maybe that's George Pickens as your Dallas bring back. And if that's the case, $800 left. It's not like you're trying to afford more. You've got the 2 highest priced receivers, the pairing of Justin Fields. You got the chalky running back. This is the perfect, or a really strong example of how to leave money on the table with salary. Obviously, if you want to go a better defense, you can. I think Houston, the price didn't matter. I like them more. I trust them more. But $600 remainder, if you think about it, if we knew Chuba Hubbard was out before this slate was priced, Rico would probably be about $5,500. If we knew Braylon Allen was going to go to IR before this slate was priced, Brees Hall would be over $6,500. And then you've got the second highest price tight end, the highest price receiver, second highest price receiver, $600 remainder. I really like that. You got the correlated bring back. You're pairing Houston player. Tyler Warren, highest projected receiving prop for a tight end today. Rico Dowdle, obvious chalk, but 600 remainder, gonna be way less duped. I will say that. So that's fun. But let me catch up to some chat. Dustin, one of the better moments, I think, referring to that building a look. So if you do have somebody today, I know I like some Cardinals today because I like for them to hurt my feelings every single week. So if you do have any kind of specific builds you want to do today, I didn't even mention which obviously this is early on the site. We'll talk about afternoon site. I haven't even mentioned Michael Carter, who, of the Amari DiMercado, Michael Carter, he's minimum priced as a running back, projected really well. But because of the Dowdle, the White news, he's showing less than 5% owned in a really strong matchup. So we'll be talking about him a little later today because it's easier to get overweight to him. Obviously, he doesn't have – it's a lot riskier because he's in a committee. But that's a fun name, Marvin Harrison. I was targeting this as the breakout game against Tennessee's defense. But he did break out, or at least break out of his supernatural funk in the second half of last Thursday night's showdown. Trey McBride, always a strong play, and he's the only above 5,500 tight end that I would play today. So Cardinals love is fine. I think they'll be going in some lines today. And then let's look at the other chats. How cheap is Justice Hill? Justice Hill is 5,000. It looks like Emery actually responded. So it's kind of expensive. Yeah, I don't really love Justice Hill today. I just don't think it's worth going that direction. There's just too much value. I'd rather get $400 more for Woody Marks. I'd rather just go down to Rachaad White to I don't like him above any of the guys that are all cheaper than him in terms of the running back substitutes or backups that are inheriting a bigger role today. But like I said, Derrick Henry, if Baltimore has any shot, he's going to have 30 touches, possibly multiple touchdowns. It's going to be an ugly 17-10 kind of game. So that's right in his wheelhouse. I will say that. And then Derrick Henry is showing right around 6% owned. So right now, in terms of leverage, I think he's showing as the second highest leverage play on the slate today. Highest running back leverage is Derrick Henry. So worth mentioning, I will say. And then last chat. Bailey's response. So don't play DFS, just a thought. Yeah, correlation. It does make sense. And again, it's a good matchup. And if he's not going to be played, so if you play one share of him, Derrick Henry, say he goes down, like he's going to get everything. I just don't think you need to do that today. There's over 10 running backs that I love. I would say love based on matchup price point. And I just don't think it's necessary, in my opinion. Let me throw another look out there. And like I said, before we put a button on this early only, if you guys have any specific builds or quarterbacks that you want to build with, just let me know. I did build a couple with Justin Fields, so I'm going to be different on this one. Let's go with Bryce Young, and let's see what expensive guys we can afford. So going HN, obvious bring back, and then Tedero is the first guy that is going to go in. Don't think you need to double stack Bryce Young. If you did, I think Rico and Ted are the safest. In terms of receiver, if you wanted to go two Carolina receivers, because nobody's going to do that today. In terms of projection, Hunter Renfrow projecting the best at $3,700. Not showing good leverage, though. Tommy Tremble, didn't mention him. He almost had 2 touchdowns last week. Caught one, got stopped at the one on the other one, but Jatavion Sanders is out. Had 8 targets, 5 catches, 42 yards, and a score. And 15 fantasy points is going to smash for less than $3,000. And in terms of tight ends today, let's see. Let me look at the tight end ownership. He's showing right around 5%, which is fine. I think basically people are splitting the baby between Mason Taylor and he as the cheap tight ends. So he's in the pool. So I think those are the only 3 Carolina players I would play. Picking 2 of Tet, Tommy Tremble, and Rico Dowdle. I don't think you need to go that cheap on this early on the slate for tight end. So I think I'll probably either opt for a single stack or Rico. But we'll hold on and see how we do. Dallas and the Jets are going in the majority of my lines in some way, shape, or form. This time, let's say Breece Hall is the guy instead of Garrett Wilson. And in terms of receiver, let's go Nico Collins. Let's go for tight end. Let's go Fergie. We did George Pickens on the last one. You got $6,300 per player left. If you go Pittman, that's enough for Saquon or Derrick Henry or anybody that's not named JT. You can get to with this specific type. If you want to go even more expensive at receiver, didn't mention his name. It's not a great matchup, but Jalen Waddle inheriting all the work. Only 6 targets or less in all 3 games, but now that there's no Tyreek Hill, I wish I had. Let me actually pull up some StatMuse. StatMuse is a really fun tool to put in questions if you want to look up like game or sample sizes of players without players in lineups and stuff. It's really helpful for like NBA, NFL, less correlation or less game sample size, all that stuff. So it's always a grain of salt. But let's say Jalen Waddle, DraftKings game log without Tyreek Hill. All right. So in 2023, I think that might be the only sample because Tyreek Hill, if I remember correctly, came in 20. No, he came in 20. No, it's 2023 is when that was his first year as a Dolphin because this is his third. No, 2022. So we do have a couple game sample size. But the most recent one without Tyreek Hill was in 2023 in December. He had 8 for 142 and a touchdown for 31 fantasy points. Pretty impressive. The other 2 games, no. Those are 2021 season in January. So that's why I was confused. But yeah, his only game sample size since Tyreek Hill has been a Dolphin. Without him in the lineup, 8 for 142 in a score. So that's impressive, I would say. $5,400 though, reasonable. He'll be popular. If you did that, $7,100, that's enough for Derrick Henry. That is 2 Dolphins, but you're double bringing back a single stack. I think that's a unique thing. Probably don't want to play Houston's defense if I'm going Derrick Henry, so I would do that. Leave a couple salary on the table. Don't mind. I don't really care. And if you prefer Tyler Warren instead of Fergie, if price didn't matter, I think I like Tyler Warren more today. But at the same time, I can't really back it up by like production because even though Warren's been awesome, he did have a dud there. It was a blowout, and he just wasn't involved on that said blowout. But Jake Ferguson, 2 straight games with 26 targets combined, and then last week caught all 7 targets. First touchdown since the 2022 season or 2023 season, and yeah, they did pretty. He's killing it right now, and it's a bottom 3 matchup. Darren Waller catching 2 touchdowns against the Jets on Monday Night Football, so it's there. I'm gonna mix and match Fergie and Warren. They probably might be my 1 and 2 most exposed tight ends today, followed by McBride and then a punt. And then I'll decide whether or not I want to go some Tommy, some Mason Taylor, or if I just want to just say I want to be, take a stand on one of them. Might end up opting to do that route. Emery saying we're going to need to make a mid-season video for the new college football playoff bracket because it's been busted. Yeah, there's been some weird stuff going on. And then Bailey saying Carson Wentz was injured. It is still 7-7 right before halftime. That's always fun. Let's see. Did Cam Akers really throw a touchdown, or is this just acting up? That's pretty funny if he ended up doing it. Anyways, yeah, we've been spending way too much time on the 6 gamer, but let's move on to the afternoon slate. We got about 39 minutes until an active list come out, but I don't think we're waiting on any kind of crazy news. But yeah, we'll jump over to the afternoon slate. Again, if you are new, we're going to do the afternoon. We'll be talking about a lot of Maine, and then after that, if we have time, we're going to jump into the primetime slot and or showdown slate for tonight's game, which is the Bills and the Patriots. I think that's a sneaky fun game. I know the Bills are 8-point favorite, but the Patriots could play them close. Drake May looks pretty good so far this season through a month, so I think it'll be a sneaky fun matchup for a showdown. And then tomorrow being the Chiefs and Jags. I hope it's not an ugly game, but I think the prices. I think it'll be reasonable to play those slates, and I like playing all kinds of slates. Afternoon wise, Jaden Daniels returns. Missed a couple games due to a knee injury. He is returning. Will wear a brace on his left knee. $7,000, highest priced quarterback on the slate today. Jared Goff following. He's probably got the much better matchup, even though, well, no, I think the Lions actually have the highest. They have the highest implied total. Problem is, he needs to be involved on the touchdowns, and not a lot of times he is. He's $6,500, less than 14 points in 3 of the 4 games. One of them, he did score multiple touchdowns, but bad matchup against Cleveland. And then the other 2, scoring 38 fantasy points, but just was not involved on many. He was only involved on one of the touchdowns. And then Green Bay, that was one, at this point, is just a weird result. But then the game that they scored 37 fantasy points, 5 touchdowns, hit that 300-yard bonus. Detroit's going to be a fun team to play today. Really fun team. The problem is I'm not confident in him being involved on all the touchdowns. And I think that matters for a guy that doesn't have rushing upside. Baker Mayfield, really tough matchup, cross-country matchup, the best uniform matchup that you're going to see today. Both teams, the Seattle Seahawks and the Bucs, are going to be wearing their throwbacks, and it's going to be a great visual, and I'm excited to, at the very least, see that. Not a great matchup, though. Mike Evans still out. Chris Godwin in his first game back. In terms of snap counts, I actually don't even have snap counts on. Snap counts. But he had 3 catches, 26 yards on 10 targets, though. Had a lot of targets. Just couldn't convert in playing catch up. But the 10 targets in his first game back, really encouraging. But I think the thing even more encouraging is his first game back playing 81% of the snaps. I did not expect that whatsoever. I know Mike Evans is banged up, but I thought it would have been, Emeka, Sterling Shepard getting most of the snaps and then going Chris Godwin in and out. No, he went right back into there, had 10 targets, 80% of the snaps. $5,900 is not like an easy price point to just click his name. So he might be overlooked. It's not a great matchup, but fun game. I think if people are going to be playing a buck today, it's going to be Rachaad White and then followed by Emeka Egbuka. And if you're playing a Baker double, I think a fun way to get different, because there is a chalky Rachaad White on this slate, is to go with a Emeka Egbuka and Chris Godwin. That's really going to force your hand at receiver. And at running back, like I said, it doesn't matter the slate today. There's fun running backs no matter where you go. But on this slate, it's going to be hard to not click on Jahmyr Gibbs, who has a strong matchup. Denver had J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey combined for over 200 all-purpose yards, a couple of scores, and it just makes all the sense in the world to play Jahmyr, who's getting way more look this year than he was before. It's not like they're doing you get a drive, then you get a drive, then you get a drive. It's more so just, Jahmyr, you're the 1A, and David Montgomery will come in and spell you from time to time. And David is flirting between 30 and 40% of the snaps. Gibbs has been at least over 60 in every competitive game. The only one that he wasn't was the 52-21 blowout where he scored the first touchdown, very efficient on his touches, but probably didn't get there based on his price point. I loved him that day, and it was just fine. 19.4 is not going to hurt you, but it's not going to win you $1 million. So he needs more. Second best matchup against running backs. 4 running backs, rather. And yeah, I think it's easy to click on his name. Omarion Hampton going to project very well. His basically game and a half sample size of no Najee Harris has been awesome. Last week, even in a negative game script, going over 120 yards rushing for the first time, and for the second consecutive game, over 120 all-purpose yards, had 12 targets in the last 2 games combined. $6,500. His price is going up and up. But yeah, I think that's a really fun game to target him. And in terms of other quarterbacks, Sam Darnold's still too cheap, $5,100. I don't know if 16 is going to get there for you, but it's not going to hurt you if he only gets 16. But he hasn't really displayed it, but he has some rushing upside from time to time. He is sneaky fast, and there's fun options to pair him with. Nobody's going to play Kenneth Walker today. I just wish that they would just boot him away because he's just not even close to the talent level. But Kenneth Walker sometimes has these crazy plays where he's hurdling unnecessarily or doing unnecessary, accidentally click the B button spin moves behind the line of scrimmage for yards lost. So I know as a coach that could probably be frustrating. Last week, though, season high in touches, 21 touches for 110 all-purpose yards. He just didn't score a touchdown. And but he got there. He's still just kind of flirting around 50% of the snaps, which is frustrating. But in terms of having only 50% of the snaps last week and still getting to 21 touches, I think is like, if you're in, we're getting him the ball. Not the best matchup, but because of his snap share split, I think he'll be overlooked, especially on the main slate today. I don't think anybody's going to click his name. I don't know if it's gone up, but his prize picks prop, I thought was shocking in terms of his fantasy score. It was showing as 11 as of yesterday morning. And I'm not really playing him a ton on main today, or I at least haven't built around him. Yeah, it's still 11 fantasy points. I know he's only projecting like 12 and a half overall, but that's to me just too low for the opportunities. He just keeps increasing. I said career high 20, not career high, season high 21 touches last week, followed from a multi-touchdown game the week before without Zach Charbonnet in the fold. Receiver wise, I think it's a fun leverage play today is Jamar Chase. It's mainly because of the fact that Detroit highest total game, highest implied team total, and because Cincinnati back-to-back blowouts, obvious duds, less than 10 fantasy points in 3 of the 4 games this season, but both games of a sample size with Jake Browning as quarterback. But if this game stays within 2 touchdowns, right, it is only a 10-point spread for that matter. So if they, for some reason, are like, hey, we've shaken off the rust, we just need to just stay competitive, it's a great matchup. I know they're 13th against receivers, but it's not like Detroit's play. I'm going to just bring up as a reference. Green Bay, receiver by committee, basically, with how they do things. Chicago, Rome Odunze, that was our play of the week, and he went for 32, 7 for 132 and 2 scores, I think was his game log in a 30-point blowout. Baltimore, receiver by committee, but Rashad Bateman at least caught a touchdown. Mark Andrews had 6 for 91 and 2 touchdowns. And then Cleveland, another kind of receiver by committee. So they haven't really had, outside of whatever you view Rome Odunze as, they haven't faced an alpha wide receiver. And we, over the last couple of years, have really targeted dominant wide receivers, especially against Detroit secondary. They're also dealing with injuries. And so I think, what was his name that just went to IR? Let me pull up the depth chart. I know Ennis Rakestraw was already out for the year. That was before the season started. But I think it was DJ Reed. Is that his name? That just went to IR? You got, yeah, DJ Reed ends up going on IR. So he is their slot corner. But he is going to be out for at least 4 games. And so that leaves a Terrion Arnold that just cannot stop holding, which he's also showing red. So he may even be out. Let me look any updates on him. Looks like he was back at practice early in the week. So I'm assuming he's playing, but I'm not concerned at all that he is playing. And then so it's him, Amik Robertson, against Jamar Chase, who is either the first or second best receiver in the entire sport, depending on how you view Justin Jefferson and him. Either way, it's those two guys. He's 7,800, so he's expensive, but nobody's playing him today. Nobody on the main slate is playing him. I think right now he's showing as about 7% owned on the main slate, which I thought was a little higher. But in terms of positive leverage, fourth highest positive leverage on the entire day today is Jamar Chase. And on top of that, because everybody's playing Detroit players, I don't think a lot of people are going to try to bring back one of the most expensive players on the entire slate. So I think that's a fun, unique way of going about things today. JSN showing really good leverage once again. Tampa Bay, pretty decent against receivers so far this year. I'm going to bring up Emeka Buka as a sample size. I think it was another kind of weird Philly. They didn't have a single passing yard in the second half, and that's not because Tampa Bay's secondary is elite. It's solid, but it's because their offense is so weird, and it's becoming really difficult to invest in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, who we know is really good at football, because they're just inconsistent roles. Playing the Jets, I think Garrett Wilson had 24 fantasy points against them for what it's worth. Nico Collins caught an opening touchdown, then basically did nothing else, and it's because C.J. Stroud just did not have a good game. Missed him twice in 2 consecutive end zone attempts, and that he won the route. So he could have had an elite day, just had a fine day. And then Drake London dropped 2 touchdowns on the final, or not the final drive, but the final drive that he played. Dropped 2 touchdowns right before Michael Penix Superman to score and keep the game close against Atlanta. Or I'm sorry, take the lead, because I know Baker had a game-winning touchdown to this very guy, Emeka Buka. So there's opportunity, even though they're Tampa Bay is ranked 4th against receivers. Almost had multiple touchdowns, Drake London. Nico almost had multiple touchdowns. Garrett Wilson went for 24. And then Philly's offense is just weird. So with that said, JSN, even though his matchup says it's bad, $7,100 is reasonable. It's fun, and it's a unique, or not unique, but it is the easiest way to bring back if you are playing Rashad White. I will say that. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but Justin Herbert, one of the cheaper, not cheaper quarterbacks, but really strong value quarterbacks. Problem is, who are you going to stack him with? Omar and Hampton feel safe to me. Quentin Johnston, is he wide receiver 1? I mean, he's increasing his volume each and every week, playing over 90% of the snaps, 4 touchdowns in 4 games, 23 targets each of the last 2 games. Or not each of the last, but combined in the last 2 games. Keenan Allen had a dud last week, but 3 straight games to open the year with a touchdown and at least 7 targets every game. Lad McConkey's on the field. He's getting the targets that he typically was last year. He just, 1, hasn't scored, and 2, I just think he's a fine receiver, but his price dipped $1,000. And on top of that, knowing that his bad performance happened, he's going to be the lowest owned of those 4 guys at for the Los Angeles Chargers. So if you wanted to do a double with a Quentin, and then instead of a Ladd or Amari and Hampton, which is probably what others would do with Justin Herbert, going with Ladd, $5,500 not going to kill you as long as he doesn't go 1 for 11. Like that might hurt you a little bit. But at some point, he should have a solid day. I don't know if he'll ever have the boom like he did towards the end of last year, because it felt like he was a pretty strong, at least 15-point every week kind of guy. And but who knows? Marvin Harrison brought up earlier, I thought today would be his boom day. It is a good matchup against Tennessee, who, let's bring up a Tennessee sample size. So I know Nico went 4 for 79. He just didn't score. In terms of week 3, that was the 3 touchdown effort from Jonathan Taylor. So the passing game didn't do a ton. This game, I think Devontae Adams went over 100 and Puka went over 100 in the same game. And then Denver, I think Courtland Sutton had a really strong first game of the year. So they can be had. And it's a fine matchup. Once again, at home, 7-point favorite. And without Trey Benson now, and knowing that you are playing Amari DiMercado and Amari DiMercado, Michael Carter, I think a lot of people, or not a lot of people, a lot more opportunity to just be like, okay, we're not just going to force feed our running back 20 touches and being annoying as an offense like they typically are with James Conner in the fold. Trey Benson kind of as well, they're a pretty conservative offense. So maybe, excuse me, maybe that leads to a little bit more opportunity for Trey Benson or Marvin to have a little bit safer of a day. Um, but yeah, so anyhow, I think quarterback's pretty easy in terms of just picking a Justin Herbert. You can punt all the way down. I think the option that makes the most sense easily because he's in a group of these guys. I don't think Cam Ward's the guy today, especially with Will Johnson returning. So it's either punting down to Sam Darnold or you're going up to Justin Herbert / you can convince me Kyler Murray. $5,900 is reasonable, but his boom has not been there. He hasn't been a 300-yard threat. He's not really rushing for touchdowns. He's just having the annoying scrambles every now and again. Probably trust the guys above him a little more. So Jared Goff, if you think he'll have multi-touchdown upside today, and Cincinnati keeps it close enough to where he can flirt with that 300-yard bonus like he did in week 2. If not, it's probably Justin Herbert or Baker or punting all the way down to Sam Darnold. So, and like I said, if you guys do have any specific builds or want to go about it any type of way, just let me know. And again, if you are new to the channel, please like, comment, subscribe if you have not already. And we're going to lock and load and go over main pretty shortly. But my first look, I'm going to start off with Justin Herbert, and then we'll see what else we can do. I think the safest build, if you're doing, first off, he's going in every afternoon only line. I will say that. I think the easiest, safest thing, like I said, is Amari and Hampton and Quentin Johnston based on how he's been performing / opportunities / snaps. It all makes sense. I think that's the safest. If you want to go about it differently, that's fine. I think not most people, I don't really know what the common double would be today for Justin Herbert. I would assume it would be Johnston and Keenan. But at the same time, I feel as though Hampton and Quentin would be the 2 highest owned overall plays today. So to each of their own, whatever you want to do. Let's start with that. And if we got to move around, we can. Defense-wise, it's harder on this slate because I think the Cardinals overall are the best play today. They're the only defense I probably would spend up all the way up for. But it's kind of hard. Bengals don't want to touch that because Detroit might drop 50 again. Tennessee, if you think they keep it close, I mean, they're fine. Last week, I mean, they don't have a stat against Indy. Bad performance, obviously. Get shut out last week, and Houston had 2 late touchdowns. So otherwise, they were around 7 to 8 fantasy points the entire day in a fine matchup. And then the previous 2 weeks, 4 points will be fine, but 10 points will get you there. So I'm open to that one. I think the highest total game is the Chargers and the Commanders. Obviously, I'm not playing the Commanders against a double stack. Bucks, Seahawks, I'm fine with either. I think Seattle might be the play based on the fantasy points and cross country matchup. Baker can throw turnovers or turn over the ball. He's not afraid to gunsling or they're going to put the ball in his hands a lot with Bucky Irving out. I think even more so today. So Seahawks defense, $2,800, I think is completely fine and reasonable. Receiver wise, I think on the afternoon slates, I'm probably going to make the decision to go Trey McBride and all. Way less excitement down low at tight end on this slate. Gadsden, he was there was coach speak of him having a better opportunity and they're going to get him more involved. That at some point will come, hopefully on a fun showdown slate that we put him as a tournament play. He did have a career high or season high for what it's worth of snaps, went from 26% in week 3 to 48% in week 4. It just didn't show it based on the production. Even in a okay game script for him, did not replicate the previous week where he was a minimum price tight end to get nearly 10 fantasy points. He might be the one down low since he is 27. He's pretty cheap. I don't know if I want to triple stack. You can on a 4-gamer. If you don't go McBride, Laporta's there. He's fine, I guess. Just kind of has not scored yet, essentially. And his boom game's coming. I just don't know if it's today. And down low, I don't really care about any of these guys. I really don't. How's Chig been doing? Chig's been okay. in fine, reasonably close games. He's had 6 targets in the previous 2 before last week. I think honestly on the afternoon, way less excitement at tight end. So I think it's either going all the way down to Gadsden or all the way up to Trey. That's kind of how I feel I will approach this slate. In terms of chalky guys, like I said, love 3 running backs. Michael Carter, minimum price. And I know 2 of the same team, it feels gross. But because you're minimum price, I think that is an exception to the rule. Like, I don't think I would play both McBride and Marvin Harrison without Kyler. But I would be fine playing Michael Carter with either of those guys because he is minimum price. Getting 10 fantasy points won't get you there, but it's a pretty solid floor projection if you hate all these receivers. And I already told you I didn't love the receivers below 4K in the early on the slate. I think it might be even worse on the afternoon on the slate. In terms of value, let me filter there. Chris Moore. Let me have to go find him. He's showing as the highest value. I don't know why. In his first game, in the game without Terry McLaurin last week, he had 0 catches on all 3 targets. In terms of snaps, at least, let me look at that. Played 70% of the snaps. So he's a 70% snap minimum price receiver. Fine. I guess. I don't love it though. I know, and again, I don't think you need to. At least on this slate, there's pay up options that we can try to get to. Like JSN is fun. I guess you can convince me to go down that low for him. Jameson Williams, mentioned him on the first look video. Too cheap, 49,000 or 4,900. Obviously has had duds, and the one game he's gone off, he only went off because of a 64-yard score. Other than that, like he's just been a dud based on his price point. So let's see some things. So Emery's saying, do you have a favorite play today? I think he was referring to Steiger. But again, if he's referring to me, favorite prop of the day, again, Rachaad White at his fantasy score at 13.5, I think is too low. With that said, I know I was trying to fidaddle, but Rachaad White is going to be probably going in all of my afternoon lines. If you didn't like Omar and Hampton and you wanted to stack elsewhere, you could go Michael. Actually, let me put Rachaad White in case you don't have to go all the way down to minimum priced Michael Carter. But it's not like on the running back slate. At least the majority of the great running backs are in the 12 o'clock slate. So Jahmyr Gibbs is great, but he's one of the lower owned. He's like 14 to 16%. Rachaad White, chalk, but he's a value. And then Michael Carter is another value. But in terms of spend ups, all of them are pretty much in the early on the slate. Afternoon only is the spend ups for receiver because the only guys above 7K are all in this slate. JSN, Chase, and Amon-Ra St. Brown are all in the 3 o'clock slate. So with that said, if you, instead of getting away from Amari and Hampton, if you wanted to go to Michael Carter, that's enough to afford any of the secondary pass catchers with the Chargers. I don't care about leaving salary on the table on a 4-gamer. On top of that, like we said, with the other values, if we knew Trey Benson was out, he would be like $5,000. If we knew Bucky Irvin was going to be out, he would be closer to $6,000. So I don't care about leaving money on the table when you're playing either of those guys or both, for that matter. I mean, we're already getting the most expensive tight end. We're not going all the way up to defense, but you can. Like I said, if price didn't matter, they might be the safest play today. I know it hasn't been a sexy amount, but Tennessee just got shut out, and they're being touchdown favorites at home. I don't think you need to get that far because Seattle is a favorite at home, and they're 600 cheaper or 800 cheaper, and they have not had 8 fantasy points. I mean, they create turnovers. They've had 7 turnovers in all 3 games. Have not allowed more than 20 fantasy points or 20 points. Have had 6 sack games, 2 defensive scores or defense/special team scores. So that's a fun thing to think about. But yeah, that's a fun look. And then let's go with Dusty saying, "Do you have a Bryce Young Tet line?" So I did build one earlier, but I'm gonna build another on the main slate. I know Bryce Young, Tet, HN. I'm gonna play a couple of lines today with those. And because we're afternoon only, they're not eligible, but we're going to be flipping the main pretty shortly. And I will start off with Bryce Young build just for you, Mr. Dustin Zimmerman. Let's do another look, though. Let's go all the way down to Sam Darnold. Don't think you need to double because of the target share that Jason has. Last week was the chalk of the showdown slate, and then had one catch through 3 quarters and then salvaged, and he basically caught the game-winning pass or game-sealing pass down the sideline to set them up for the field goal to win the game, avoid overtime against the Cardinals. So other than that game, he's been at least 20 fantasy points every single game, and hopefully in this game there's a little bit more opportunity. So if Sam Darnold, I think you can single if you wanted to, single stack him. If you're going to double, I mean, Cooper Kupp has not been impressive. I will be frank. Had one game where he had 7 for 90. Other than that, he's been under 35 receiving yards every single game. $4,600 is fine. It's not amazing pricing. And then Torrey Horton's the other guy at 36. At least he scored twice. But other than that, he still is also not going over 35 yards in any game this season. Tight end wise, it's not much better. I know A.J. Barner did score in 2 of the last 3 games, but once again has not gone over 35 receiving yards. So I think it's completely fine and reasonable to stack or single stack Seattle. And if I had to double, I think because of the leverage, because he's low owned, I would go Kenneth Walker, in my opinion. I know he's not a huge PPR back. He really isn't. But he did have some flirtations last year with a couple of 8-target games. So I think it's fine. But he would be last guy in if we're going to do that. Either way, like I said, Jahmyr Gibbs going in all of my afternoon only lines. And defense, let's start out with Arizona. And then if we need to go down, we can. Trey McBride, probably hard to not play him, especially if we're going value at quarterback. Receiver-wise, I want to force Jamar Chase in here. Can we even go that far? Rachaad White, by the way, he's also going in this line. Didn't mention Amari DiMercato, but he's in the pool if you don't mind him. In terms of ownership, let me actually look up the Arizona running backs because DiMercato is inheriting, like, if you're on a redraft platform, the higher projection total. But Michael Carter, I think, is the better play overall today. In terms of our optimizer that we look at and share, DiMercato projected for 11. Carter projected for 10, but because of the price difference, Michael Carter is showing us the better value. And in terms of ownership, on the main slate, Amari DiMercato is slightly higher owned, but Michael Carter no longer really is any kind of chalk. He's less than 5% owned. Both of them actually are, but DiMercato is not there in terms of ownership yet. Rachaad White, like I said, going in this line, if I had to go down to Michael Carter, I could. Don't really want to. Let's go down to defense. Let's go Seattle. Wish I could bring back Emeka Ibuka, but at the same time, I'm getting Rachaad White, so it's fine. And we got 4,500 left. If we went all the way down to the Chris Moore, that's enough for a correlation play. Since we are playing Jamar Chase, we go down to Chris Moore, and that leaves you enough for any Charger receiver. So you go there. That's fine and the fun. And that's a reasonable take on why, or go all the way down to get the most expensive running back, second most expensive receiver, third most expensive receiver, most expensive tight end. Fun value, leave some salary on the table. So that's fine if you wanted to do that route. I wish I could get through running backs. Don't know if I can with this build unless I went all the way down at tight end. And with this specific line, even if you did go all the way down to like Gadsden, 64 is not really exciting me. Debo paid off last week in his first game sample size without Terry McLaurin. Caught all 6 balls for 72 yards and also had a couple of rushing attempts as well. He was limited all week, though, with a quad injury, if I remember correctly. Let's let's see. Heel. He missed the first 2 practices, but practiced fully Friday. So I don't think he'll be limited at all, but just slight re-risk of injury. It would correlate if we went that route. So basically, it's Trey McBride plus Chris Moore versus Samuel plus Gadsden. Do you have a dog in the fight? Probably overall, raw point projection, I think this one would be better, but I don't really like it. I will say that. Trey McBride. But I also want to play some Marvin Harrison today. So decisions. Let's play Marvin. Let's get crazy. $3,700 is gross, but if we try to get some value down here, maybe we can make something work. So let's do Zach Ertz. Let's do Zach Ertz, and as a natural bring back, Keenan Allen, Lad McConkey, to correlate a little bit with Zach Ertz. You got correlation there. You got the stack. You don't have a bring back for your single stack. Slightly different, but it works. If you wanted to go down even cheaper, let's say we go all the way down to Gadsden. That's 6,700. That's enough for Marion. That's 2 Chargers, but it is what it is. If you, let's see. How many snaps did Elijah Royal have? Because I was bummed because he was my less than $1,000 play on the showdown slate. He had 2 for 44 in the first half. It was awesome. He also had 2 red zone or end zone targets, and he just one was a PI and one I think was overthrown. But season high 55% of the snaps last week. So honestly, I'll flirt with that idea with the Sam Darnold build. 300 remainder. That actually opens up $300 extra if you wanted to get all the way up to, or nope, actually, going to leave it right there. So Marvin Hampton as the Charger in at home, projecting really well. Marvin Harrison, if you didn't like Marvin, you could go up to a double Charger. Probably just rather stay Marvin. The different play being Jamar Chase. If you don't trust him, you could go double dominant Detroit guy and go with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. Or Amon-Ra, I love Gibbs and I want to play him in every afternoon only. But just for what it's worth, you can't afford, if you wanted to go Hampton at running back, you could afford Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra, which I think would be the less played way. Well, no, actually, I think that'll probably be the more played way. Either way, you can afford, if you have a specific lean, you could do both options between Gibbs. I'm sorry. Yeah, Gibbs and Amon-Ra with a bring back of Jamar Chase, who I don't think will be high owned. That's fun. That's a fun one. There's really only one nervous play in terms of cheap guy, but because he did have a career high in snaps and 2 for 44, 4 targets, 2 of them were end zone targets, like I said, maybe he does catch his first touchdown. And the reason Sam Darnold throws for 2, it's because he threw one to that guy and then he threw one to that guy. That's fun. But we are about 5 minutes away from the true inactives coming out. So we're not really waiting on news, but if something shocking happens, Tyreek got arrested week 1 last year. So anything can happen. And if that comes out and I'm missing it, or y'all see it and it's pretty shocking, just let me know. And we will react to any kind of crazy thing going on. It looks like, what's up, Jeremy? Missed you coming in. Emery did say over for Pickens fantasy points. Let me see what he's projecting. Go to this main. I'm going to refresh our optimizer. Not our optimizer, but the one we use. Shout out to Chris Pinnell if he ever does watch the show. We are big fans and we collab on his NASCAR content. Best season ever. So I highly recommend if you ever are interested in him. He does all sports. In terms of, what was I even talking about? Oh, George Pickens. George Pickens is showing a high owned 17.1 fantasy projection in terms of our optimizer by Chris. And in terms of Prize Picks, RotoWire, 16.1. So he's projected over. I don't know how I rank the Cowboys as bring back plays to Jets lines. I don't know how to do that. I actually, chat, that's a good question. How do you rank Jake Ferguson, George Pickens, Javonte Williams? Because the Gale brought up earlier, he likes Javonte today. He's projecting really well as well. Positive leverage. George Pickens, also positive leverage. Freaking Jake Ferguson, killer. He's actually showing negative leverage because he's the highest owned tight end. That's the only reason, but it's only slight. So either way, all of them, I want to play all of them, I think. But George is the hardest to play to me. Well, that's a lie. Javonte is the hardest to play to me. But George, I think I would feel the worst about. And it's not like I feel like not confident. But to me, in my opinion, personally, why play 15.5 Pickens when you can play 14.5 Garrett Wilson? Because in terms of price, doesn't matter. I think I feel better about Garrett Wilson today. 3 of the 4 games this year with over 20 fantasy points. I scored in 3 of those games. It doesn't matter the quarterback. He's got at least 8 targets in every game. And great matchup today. I think if price didn't matter, I would pick him anyway. And he has the lower prop. So that's kind of my reaction to it. But I don't hate 15.5 by any stretch. Anyhow, he does say Pickens, Williams, Ferguson is your thought. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we'll do some correlation first. I did promise Dusty I'll start with a Carolina build, but after that, obviously we're going to go to a Justin Fields build, and then we'll start with the Pickens bring back and go from there. So with that said, Bryce Young, welcome to our line. Like I said, I want to be overweight to him. He's our puke stack of the day. Teteroa, I think this is his breakout game. This is his first career touchdown game, and it's going to pop off. I think in terms of leverage, he is the 3rd highest on the slate today at receiver. So $5,700, very reasonable. Projecting really strongly. Great matchup. And then the bring back, obviously being Devon Achane, I think is no-brainer in my opinion. But at the same time, if you wanted to be different, going Jalen Waddle, Malik Washington, I won't stop you. Like both of those as well. But Devon Achane is just their wide receiver 1 at running back, and he's $7,300. He shouldn't be. In terms of double, like I said earlier, Rico Dowdle would be my preferred second option. I think I've made the decision that even though Tommy Tremble does have the good matchup, I think in terms of cheap tight end today, I'm just going to put all of that exposure to Mason Taylor and get to like 10 to 15% of him. Tommy Tremble, don't mind. He is under 3,000 also. And Jatavion Sanders is out. But I think I'm going to single this line. I'm going to single stack this line unless Dusty chats in and he's like, no, I want you to force a double. And then I can do whatever you ask because I am for the people. Running back wise, Rachaad White, pretty easy plug and play. He might be one of the higher exposed running backs for me today. I do, no matter what, want exposure to the Cowboys and Jets game. Garrett Wilson, kind of surprising to me, but he is the lower owned between him and Breece Hall. So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. And with this specific build, I'm going to say Jake Ferguson. That leaves you 7,100. You can do a lot of fun things with 7,100. You could go double expensive running back. That's enough for George Pickens. And then instead of that, we can go down to Tyler Warren. Just show you that look real quick. You got, boom. That's fun. That's really fun. If you didn't want to do that, you can go away from him. Go back to Jake Fergie as you bring back for that Garrett Wilson. And you can go down to Saquon. I mentioned him. I wanted to be overweight. It's really easy to get overweight. That's enough for Nico Collins. You could go all the way down to Derrick Henry. I might want to get away from Houston Steve once again if I did play Derrick Henry in any line. But that's enough for JSN. There's a lot of fun ways to go. Let's see. I don't have a Detroit player. And on top of that, Rachaad White is my only 3 o'clock matchup. So to put a button on this line, I think honestly what I ended up pivoting to, which is Tyler Warren and George Pickens. I think that's really fun to me. You got my 2 favorite running back plays today, which is Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane. In terms of dominant or expensive guys. You got Rachaad White as some good chalk below 5K. You got pretty solid defense, like I said, between Houston and New Orleans. I'm going to sprinkle both today because I don't think there's great pay up options. So them, Tyler Warren, highest projected receiving prop for any tight end today is Tyler Warren. He's $4,700. George Pickens, Garrett Wilson, fun as a pivot because, like I said, Jake Ferguson most owned tight end. Brees Hall high owned in terms of running back. So non-Justin Fields lines, but still playing both receivers, I think is fun. And then Teteroa as your single for Bryce Young. Let's kind of do a little bit of a sprinkle. So if you did want to do a double, I would put in Rico Dowdle for 43. And then you got 500 remainder, so you can go up to defense. We mentioned the Seahawks earlier. If you didn't want to do that route, you can go up to JSN. Let's see. You can go to JSN and have zero salary. Don't have a Cowboy in there, but I still feel fine about that line. If you had the preference between New Orleans and Jake Ferguson over Tyler Warren and Houston, could do that. We can go down from Gibbs. No. We actually decided that especially if we take out Rachaad White, we need some 3:00 games in here, which we did add JSN for this specific build. And then just quickly, just because why not? I'll throw a Tommy Tremble line in just to see if I convince myself to change my mind. Put Tommy Tremble in, that's $6,100 remainder. Let's go down from JSN. So this lineup would be for the Gales. So Nico Collins, highest receiving yardage prop today is Nico Collins, and he's less than 5% owned. So I think those are both fun thoughts. And on top of that would be the Gales play, which is Javonte Williams as the bring back to Garrett Wilson. If you instead wanted to go the route of Brees Hall and George Pickens, you could do that. That's fun. That's fun as well. And then also that 300 extra remainder. If you have a lean for Amon-Ra, you can afford any guy up top for your last guy in. I think I prefer Jameer. On top of that, you get a little extra salary. And on top of that, I think he's lower owned between the two. That's fun as well. There's a lot of fun today. I love today's slate. It's really, really fun. I'm really going to enjoy it. Hopefully it works out all of our ways. Quinshon Judkins is good at football. Did he score a touchdown? Or is he just driving like he has been? Let's see. This entire drive, I'll read it back to you if you aren't paying attention to the game. Judkins for 14, Judkins for 3, Judkins for 7. He comes out for 2 plays. Then he gets Judkins for 18. Then he gets Judkins for 3. And then he gets the first down. And now it's goal to go. And hopefully he scores a touchdown because I did pick a 3-pick 50% profit boost for this game. I'm hoping that it can close pretty strongly, but we'll see what happens. Looks like the Vikings are clinging to a 4-point lead, but again, the Browns are in scoring territory. All right, let's go ahead and we'll go with a Justin Fields build. And again, we are doing the main slate for a couple minutes, and we didn't have time last week for the primetime slate. I do want to go over there just because I have not looked at pricing for the primetime slate yet, and so I want to react to it live with you guys. But yeah, we'll do a Justin Fields build. Several things, like I said, no matter what I think, I'm going to do Justin Fields with Garrett Wilson today, and then either decide single or then double it with Mason Taylor or Brees Hall. So with that said, the tricky question to me, I know Emery did rank George Pickens, Javonte Williams, and Jay Ferguson 1, 2, 3 in terms of Cowboys bringbacks. I don't feel confident in terms of any order. I like everything. The problem is Javonte, there's just so many good running backs. Tight end, there's not a ton of great tight ends. And then receiver, I mean, George Pickens kind of naturally falls into builds. And if you like him more than Nico, I can't stop you. I like him basically more than every guy that's not Garrett Wilson in the 6K range. Him and Nico are really, really close. But because Nico is showing 4% ownership and George Pickens is showing 4 times that, that's why it's kind of my lean if it's just this guy versus that guy. But Garrett Wilson's going in this line. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And if you don't want to play HN, you can find ways to play HN, but I'm not going to build a non-HN line on this stream. Thumbnail, all that fun stuff. Let's go down to, we'll double with Breece Hall in this line. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, just by far safest plays on the in terms of Jets today. So I don't know if it's going to be the most common double for Jets. I don't think you need to double if you don't want to, but it's easy for both. Average of about $5,800 for the two. I think it makes a lot of sense. Let's go ahead and take Dusty's favorite tight end, Trey McBride. Try to force him in. He's a 3 o'clock game. Only guy above 5K that I would play. There's only two. But, yeah, he makes a lot of sense. He is the highest owned and highest leveraged tight end today on the slate. Pretty fun. Okay, $5,700. You can do a lot of fun things. So we can do a bunch of mid tier guys. We could go put back in Tetaroa and Quentin. Oh, I'm on flex. We can put back in, like I said, Quentin Johnston, Tetaroa as the bring back to HN. You got 5,800 remainder. That's enough for. I wish Chuba was playing today because I like Chuba and I thought nobody was really going to play him today. You could go down to White and then go up to Nico on one of these. I don't know if I have a preference between Quentin and Tetaroa overall today in terms of this guy versus that guy, but going down to Rachaad White is enough for Nico or George Pickens for that matter. Let's see, George Pickens. I did tell Emery I was going to do George Pickens double, so that makes sense to do it that way. And then Rachaad White, last guy in. So that is only two guys in the 3 o'clock game. So with that said, to maybe feel a little better, I might instead go Quentin Johnston instead of Tetaroa in this line. I think it's easy to get overweight to both today. They're going to project about the same. I don't know. I feel like one will score. My bet would be on Quentin. Tetaroa. Who knows, though? But if you didn't like George Pickens and instead you wanted to go Jake Ferguson as the bring back, that's enough for Jamar Chase. I don't know if I want to play Jamar Chase. I know I want to be overweight to Jamar Chase. I don't know if I want to play him standalone without a Detroit Lion. That said, let's go down to, if I went Rico Dowdle, I could afford whatever I want. Don't really want to do that, though. Let's go with let's see. You got Garrett, you got Quentin. If you went with Marvin Harrison Jr., $7,100 is enough for Derrick Henry. It's enough for JSN. Like I said, most of my lines are going to be playing 3 running backs, but if you do go 4 receivers, it's a PPR site. I'm not going to fault you for doing that. I just can't wait for National Tight End Day so we can do double tight ends because those are always fun lines to build. Don't think you need to do that today, though. But to finish it off, let's go ahead and we'll take out Marvin. We'll put in Tet. And then this is an early only build outside of Quentin, at least. You go Nico, last guy in. You go George. Take out him. Put Tyler Warren. But in this line, I want to put Fergie. Let's find a way to fit JSN. Go down to New Orleans. I know I was going to do something to fit in Cam Scatterbo earlier, and I lost my train of thought. But instead of Quinn or Tet, you go down to Marvin. 200 remainder. I guess you can go back up to Houston D if you want. But because of the fact that, I don't really care. I like all these guys. It makes a lot of sense. Last kind of flexible build with Justin Fields. I want to put in Mason Taylor. just to show you guys what I would do in that regard. Mason Taylor, $2,800, too cheap. And with that said, we're going to go to George Pickens once again. Let's take out Breece Hall in this one because we don't need 3 Jets. That's kind of terrifying against or with a running style quarterback. Let's go defense wise, somebody cheap. Houston. Running back wise, if you went Rachaad White, you go boom. $7,400. That's affording you could bring back with put Nico here. That's enough for Jameer. Let's go. That's fun. I love this line. So you got Mason Taylor and Garrett Wilson with the bring back of George Pickens. You got Rachaad White. You got Devon Achane as standalone plays. And then Jahmyr Gibbs is your last guy in. Who, yeah, I love all of that. If you want to go down to Houston, it gives you a couple of flexible options. Let's see. Highest overall leverage play today, according to Chris, is JSN. So that's pretty fun. I really want some 3 o'clock guys, though. Let's go down from... No, I can't afford him. Put back in Nico. Do whatever you want. I love this line. I'm going to play this line. This is a fun line. What do you guys think? We got I'd say about 17 minutes. David Njoku touchdown for Cleveland to take the lead. We need, I guess we're going to sweat again for TJ Hawkinson. He had 2 catches early, and now all of a sudden he's 20 yards away once again. We'll see. But yeah, any last second builds, just let us know or let me know, and I'll build for you guys. Let's do a Justin Herbert build. And if nobody has any thoughts after I finish up with these, we can go ahead and go to the prime time. Let's start with Bang. Let's do Amarian Hampton in this one because I don't know how high owned he's going to be, but he's going to project really well. And on the main, I think there's ways to get different and unique. Let's go down to Hollins. And we'll go tight end. Let's go Tyler Warren. And running back wise, sorry, he's going in the line. And 5,800 per guy. There's a lot of guys in the mid range that just are good plays. You can go Garrett Wilson, and then you can go both Tet and Quinn Johnston. Oh, no, I already have Quinn Johnston in there. You can go Tet and Marvin Harrison. You can go with, if I went up to George Pickens, $4,800. Do I have Rachaad White? I don't have Rachaad White. So you go those 3. George Pickens is your bring back to Garrett Wilson. If you'd rather have Jake Ferguson, then you could go with him instead of Tyler Warren. That's enough for... Oh, I'm already down from Houston's D. So can't really immediately flip to a Nico Collins if you prefer to do that. But you can go down from Rachaad White. We can go to Rico Dowdle. Go Bang. 7,000 per guy the rest of the way. And that's Emeka Ibuka. I think if price didn't matter and you didn't really care about the correlation, I think I prefer outright Tyler Warren and JSN as that line. If I was to do that, that's not bad. If you want to go all the way down to Michael Carter to be different since he's not going to be played today, that could afford you a lot of other things, or just a little more expensive defense, or Jake Ferguson once again. That's fun. But let's show another look where we don't play Omarion and we play a 2 receiver build. Let's start with Keenan's the safer one, but literally they're basically the same price. $5,600 Keenan, $5,500 Lad. Lad way lower owned. Keenan Allen way safer, but at the same time, he's going to be higher owned. So that might be the most common way of people doing builds with the Chargers today. So just for what it's worth, let's take out Garrett on this one. We'll put in Brees Hall. And then you have enough for different things. You got, if we put in George Pickens, that's enough for a Cam Scatterboo. Haven't played him yet. Javonte, wouldn't want to play George Pickens with Javonte, but you could. You could go all the way up to Tyler Warren, or not Tyler Warren, Trey McBride. Leave you 51. That's enough for Michael Pittman. You could also go down to Rachaad White, go up to Houston. And once again, you can do whatever you want in terms of Ladd versus Keenan. I probably, if I'm doing a double with Justin Herbert, it's going to be Quinn Johnston and then either Amar and Hampton. And I'm going to take a stand on a Keenan or a Ladd. But I'm not going to play a ton of either of those guys. So probably maybe 2 shares. Could do that. Like I said, go back up, play another mid-tier guy, Tet, last guy in. That's enough for either tight end. Love Fergie today. Love Tyler Warren today. Could do that. Yeah, that's a fun build. What do you guys think? Like I said, last call, if you have any specific quarterback builds you want me to give a look for, just let me know. But we'll give it about a minute or two, and then we'll kick it over to the primetime slate. 2-gamer between the Patriots and the Bills tonight. Bills debuting their, I guess, snow Buffalo unis. And then you got tomorrow the Chiefs and the Jaguars. So those will both be fun slates. Let's do one build with. Let's do a Dak build. We're playing a lot of Cowboys. Haven't really talked about him much, but he's fine too. And obviously the way lower owned play. Let's see. Showing about 5% ownership. Still positive leverage though. And yeah. Let's go with Dak. Obviously, if you're playing Dak, you're going Georgie. You can pick between Jake Ferguson or Javonte. Javonte and George is probably going to be the different way people go about it because Jake is the highest priced tight end. Everybody that's going to play Dak is more than likely going to play George Pickens. But we can find ways to get different. Brees Hall is the more popular play in terms of Jets ownership. So I'll go with Wilson in this one. G defense is what I'm going to do all day today. And then I already played tight end. Forgot about my lock of the live stream, Devon Achane, thumbnail. He's going in every line. With that said, that is enough for 47. That's $6,050 per player left. You could go another punt and then go a dominant receiver. So if I went JSN and go all the way down to Rico Dowdle, or instead of Jackson Smith and Jigba, you can go with Jahmyr Gibbs. That's enough for Darius Slayton. I like Darius Slayton today. Haven't brought his name up, but he's fun. 28% target share. 4 targets each of the last 2 games, and now Malik Neighbors is out for the year, so inheriting a ton more snaps. Last week specifically, he had about 87% of the snaps last week. So 97% in week 1, 99% week 2. Week 3 was a weird game, but still a solid 76%, and then 87% last week. So he's going to be on the field a lot. $4,300, I think, is a bargain, and nobody's really playing him. So you could do that. You could go you can go any way you want, man. You really can. If I went Marvin, that's 67. That is enough for Hampton as a fun 3 o'clock name. You can still afford 2 of the 3 Charger. No, or you don't really want Chargers if you're going to Mar and Hampton, but you can afford Jalen Waddle, whatever. You go Marvin. You could go. Let's go expensive tight end. No. Actually, yeah. We're gonna do this. Let's play Javonte Williams, $6,200. The less probably common way people are going to double Dallas if they did. $4,900 left. That's last guy in, Jameson Williams. 2 J Wills. I'm not mad. We can be like the Thunder. Double J Will line. Got Georgie with Garrett as a bring back with Javonte, obviously at the flex. Again, if you ever do for late swap purposes, not enough people do this, but late swap is basically after contest locks. If you want to pivot, leave some salary on the table, get different with your line or change directions. I would always put any kind of, if you have 3 o'clock availabilities in the flex, always do that, even if it's whether it's your redraft leagues, your buddy leagues, or what have you. I always think it's just better to have flexibility at the flex. That's literally the premise of the position flex. So you would do that. And then, so you got 3 guys in the 3 o'clock games, and you got a bunch of guys there. 0 remainder. If you wanted to, you can go to New Orleans and Jameson instead of him. Go with Michael Pittman, who's been very solid, steady, and good matchup against the Chargers without Alec Pierce. Yeah, fun stuff. Fun stuff. All right, to wrap things up for the slate and the stream today, we can't thank you enough for tuning in if you have already. And again, if you are new to the show, I am Cameron Selby, paired with Emery Cuzzy and Dustin Zimmerman. We talk all things football. Dusty is the college football guru. Emery does a little bit of both, but he is on leave. So I'm walking y'all through today's slate for the NFL contest. There's a best ball. No, we're not going to do best ball. All right. Prime time. Like I said, this will be my first time taking a look at the prices. So that'll be fun to kind of react to it. I think I have an idea of what most will be based on playing some Thursday, Monday contests. But yeah, let's do a quick dive into pricing, and then again, we'll probably omit covering the showdown slate on the live stream, but we will put out locks usually 30 to an hour before every slate. So 12 o'clock lines probably going to be my exposures, and early only is going to be thrown out around 11:30, and then 3 o'clock games probably 30 to an hour before. Same thing with prime time, same with showdown, all that stuff. Basically, this is going to be whether to play or to not play Josh Allen. $8,000 is a lot. Honestly, a sneaky fun quarterback slate based on the pricing. You got the dominant one, you got 2 mid-tier guys, and then you got the cheap one. Obviously, the worst of the bunch, but $5,100 is $5,100. So, in terms of value, RotoWire is showing Trevor Lawrence having the highest value of all 4 quarterbacks. So, I don't know how accurate this roster ownership is. I think that's kind of foolish if he's the highest owned. I understand the pricing being cheap, but $5,100, his receivers have been bad this year. He also has, he's not looking like the prospect that he was hyped up to be. Like, that is completely fair. But this year it's even worse in terms of the drops. Brian Thomas Jr. is not playing well. Travis Hunter has not had his boom game or even a floor game for that matter recently. And so it's hard to even think about any Jag outside of Travis Etienne, who is having a resurgence, renaissance, whatever you want to call it, after injury plague season last year. Defense-wise, I think it's probably the Chiefs or Jags. That's going to be a way lower total. In terms of both games, the Bills and Patriots is a 49-point total, and then the Jags and the Chiefs is about 49.5. So about a 3.5-point difference between the 2 games. I don't have a lean. Casey's defense has been fine. Didn't create any turnovers in weeks 1 and 2, but weeks 3 and 4 obviously had a really strong game against Baltimore. Giants, really good game as well. Jacksonville could be more of the same because Trevor's not afraid to throw interceptions. But Jacksonville's defense has been really strong. Look at this. I don't think anybody realizes that they've been a great fantasy defense so far. At least 8 points in all fantasy games so far. So if this is not necessarily a trap game, but if you think Kansas City kind of doesn't build off their offensive explosion last week, and it's more of the last year winning 20-17 ugly, $2,500 for a team that just has an 8-point floor, apparently, it's reasonable. I mean, I don't know if that's leading the league in takeaways, but 4 turnovers last week, 3 the week before, they've had at least 3 turnovers every single week so far. Haven't even started sacking the quarterback a ton. And 2 of the 3 games, they've only allowed 10 points. So I know they're against Houston and Carolina, but it goes without saying. I think defense, just go with one of those two. That would be my opinion. Let's say with Jacksonville for now, because I like Mahomes. I'm going to play Mahomes in the showdown. I don't know if I want to play him here. Drake May, 3 straight games, at least 21 fantasy points. Good matchup, sneaky good matchup against Buffalo, who Buffalo's blown out 2 teams that are bad, or three kind of blown out teams. The last 3 weeks they've played cupcakes, playing the Jets, blowing them out. Obviously, Justin Fields also getting hurt in that game. Miami kind of let him hang around a little bit, but they created no turnovers. Miami kind of was able to move the ball up and down the field, but just and it was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, I think. And then New Orleans last week on the road, 17-point underdog, kept it tight the whole game. So New England, who at least every single game has scored, they dropped 42 last week. Ugly game against Pittsburgh. This was a bad weather game, so kind of is what it is. But Drake May, 50 opportunities week 1 in bad weather. That was welcome in sight. Miami, he barely had the ball in the fourth quarter, but 26 fantasy points because he ran for 1, threw for 2. Threw for 2 the following week, had 45 rushing yards. He might be my allegedly favorite quarterback. Josh Allen has been fine since week 1. Obviously, this was a crazy, awesome performance. Since then has been fine. I think you need 30 points from him to pay off this salary. So if you think this is a 25-point game, I think both Mahomes and Drake May have to be held below 20, maybe even below 17 to truly have big enough of a difference to go all the way up to Josh Allen. Like I said, Mahomes, 3 of the 4 games, at least 23 fantasy points. Drake May, three straight games, at least 21 fantasy points. I think those are the better values today, in my opinion. Josh Allen, at least on RotoWire, the worst value quarterback on the slate, lowest owned apparently. So I guess people are having similar thoughts to me in that regard. But I'd probably, it's easier to feel comfortable about your stacks being a Mahomes. But I think Drake May might be my favorite of the quarterbacks. Hard to not play James Cook. He's the only dominant price running back. He might be the highest owned guy on the entire slate today. He's just been awesome, and he's by far the highest projected, only dominant price running back. That he's just auto click to me. Yeah, I'm gonna lock and load that. Second running back is tougher if you don't go ETN. ETN, Kansas City is much better than being bottom 10 against running backs, but so far has just been okay against running backs. But they did stuff O'Brien Hampton week 1. They pretty much held Saquon in check outside of a touchdown. So I'm not really. And then the other 2 games were Cam Scatterbo went off Sunday Night Football. That's kind of what skewed the performance. And then Derrick Henry, they bottled up. So it says bottom 10 against running backs. But Hampton scored less than 10. Saquon scored less than 20. Derrick Henry scored less than 10, if I remember correctly. And then Cam Scatterbo went off. But 3 strong running backs you held in check, and 1 you let go awry. So I'm just saying, ETN, he is having an awesome year. Don't think he's a must, but he does make sense to click on, especially because it's not like we're trying to afford guys. You're going to leave some salary on the table on this slate, I will say that. Stephon Diggs finally having a 100-yard game last week. He was kind of a dud through 3 weeks, but they're kind of bringing him back easily. It's also a revenge game against Buffalo in Buffalo. Decent matchup, $4,800. Not a confident click, but he makes sense. Tight end wise, Hunter Henry, highest priced tight end, and he only goes off if you don't play him. That's how it works. If you play him, he goes for 1.9. If you don't play him, he goes for 29. Last week, he was a dud outside of a 31-yard touchdown. So he makes sense as a double. Buffalo, for what it's worth, is first against tight ends. I mean, whatever. Like, that's just kind of like, I don't really view opponent ranks for tight ends. I think it's kind of skewed because like dominant tight ends are matchup proof is what it is. Tough between these 4 though. Really good underrated tight end slate because Kelsey 4,300. You never see him that cheap, but he's also just no longer what he used to be as a fantasy asset. Dalton Kincaid, finally a breakout somewhat, at least 7.5 in every single game so far. 3 touchdowns in 4 games, but he is priced up. Hunter Henry, 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games, but he is priced up. Brenton Strange has been the only steady presence of a fantasy asset as a pass catcher for Jacksonville so far, based on his price point. So him being by far the cheapest, and 3 of the 4 games being at least 9.9 fantasy points, I think that's fine if you want to go that route. I might, I, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, 32nd against tight ends, that sounds fun, right? Like we mentioned, Tommy Tremble almost scoring 2 touchdowns against the Patriots last week. And then in the weeks before that, let me see if I can do this top of my head. So Pittsburgh, tight end by committee, I don't really care. They split opportunity between Jonnu and Pat Freiermuth. Miami didn't have a tight end, and Raiders, Brock Bowers goes for 100. So Brock Bowers went for 100. That's what skews it to make them 32nd against tight ends. So whatever, I think you just kind of close your eyes and click. I hope they all just kind of score 10 and we can figure out other ways to be different. Xavier Worthy is going to go in my lines. I know that. First game back, played a lot of snaps, had 10 opportunities, had over 120 all-purpose yards. Just didn't score a touchdown, but really strong matchup. And $5,800 is a bargain. He's going to be the highest owned tight or receiver, but it is what it is. Keon Coleman, outside of his fourth quarter comeback win, where he had 7 receptions in the fourth quarter, he's been a nothing burger. But at the same time, blowout, or positive negative game script, and he wasn't the one to score a touchdown. And then New Orleans, once again, just hasn't had more than 4 targets since, so I don't feel comfortable picking 5,100 for him. Hollywood Brown was a dud both games without Xavier Worthy, and then he catches a touchdown when he comes back. So maybe he's just only a compliment. If you play doubles with Kansas City, I guess he's in the pool. Don't love it, though. I will note, apparently, he's coming, guys. He's coming. Apparently, he is going to be getting more involved in the offense going forward. I did take a peek at the showdown pricing, and it makes me sad that he went from being a minimum price guy to 3,200 based on hearsay. But 26% of the snaps last week was the season best by far. And Kareem Hunt actually outsnapped Isaiah Pacheco. Both of them have been very inefficient. And Rashard Smith, he was a receiver in college anyways. But this is what we care about, is can he get targets? He's not really going to be ever a 15-plus carry guy. He's going to be Jarrett McKinnon if he ever has any kind of upside. 4,200, almost minimum price. But the thing is, you're not really affording anything by getting down there. I'm just going to put Thornton in just as a price reference. $9,000. Even if you go all the way up to Josh Allen, $7,000, you're leaving $900 on the table, no matter what you do. So I don't think you need to do that on this slate. I don't think a lot of people are going to play him. But if he does go off, that makes me happy going forward, and especially for our best ball teams, who he is our most exposed player. Could be a buy low spot for Travis Hunter. He also had, if I remember correctly, the fewest amount of snaps of the season last week, or second fewest. He's been flirting with high 30s, low 40s all season. Hasn't had his breakout. One of these games, he almost had a long touchdown, and it was J.C. Horn because he had an incredible interception week 1. But these guys are all gross, man. I don't know what to tell you. Khalil Shakir, he's fine when he scores. When he doesn't, it's just But $5,200, whatever. No matter what, you're going to have price or salary on the table on this slate. It's crazy. Even if you went all the way up to Buffalo defense, I don't want to because of their injuries, lack of production. But doing that, you're going to leave like $1,000 on your table, and you're not going to feel good about your line, but it's not like you're trying to afford anything else by doing these things. But auto click in a lot of things. As long as you're not going up to Josh Allen, you're gonna have salary on the table. So fun stuff. All right, guys. I am going to go ahead and get out of here. We are past 11 o'clock. I can't thank you guys enough for joining the stream today. I feel like, at least talking wise, it went way better than last week. And I hope that money wise, it goes even better than a strong week we had last week. So can't thank you guys enough. Be on the look in Discord for our final lines, exposures, all that fun stuff, usually before lock. We're going to have some success today, and I'm excited for it. So love you guys. Can't thank you enough. And we will see you guys on the next one.